All right, back on the Young Turks election coverage. I've been billing this as one last fight, hill or high water.
Hill or high water. That's not gonna.
So the aggressive progressives are here. I don't know why I let them steal that title from me. I'm the aggressive progressive.
Not really. You're an aggressive moderate.
You're a sellout. You're a Hillary supporter.
So seriously, tell the audience how much is the Clinton Foundation paying you?
Okay, well, look. So Steve is also our chief business officer at the Young Turks, so he knows the answer. So I can't believe he put me on the spot like that. And I'm not going to have to admit it.
No.
Fine, it's $0.
No.
Yeah, but what about
You're a
that
terrible negotiator.
What about that fusion money?
Okay, and that conversation that I had with Haim Sabah, who I have never met.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're getting a negative $10,000 a week to promote Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, when I lose members, yes, in essence,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Anyway, so we are going to talk about I want to ask you guys who you voted for, why, and we'll have that discussion. But Jimmy, before we get started on all that, you want to talk about the lines.
So I go to vote where I normally vote in Pasadena, and there's never a line. Ever. No, I walk in, it's an empty, you can hear an echo.
It's because you keep going when it's not election day.
That is true. That is true. It's also a church.
Yeah.
So there was a line out to the street, and I'm like, it'll probably move. You know, I left myself a half hour. I'm like, so I stand there for 20 minutes, and I didn't move. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be late for work. You know, what do I do? And then I start thinking, well, look at everybody else looked like regular people in line, right? They all looked like they were going to regular jobs. And I was like, this is horrible that we do this. And then I remembered, I vote by mail.
You already voted?
I have it set up. So I leave the line and I go home and I'm like, I'll never find this thing, right? My ballot. I found it the third place I looked. There it is. I'm like, son of a bitch, I can vote today. I feel so great.
Okay, I have a similar story, very similar. So I get out there, the place is a senior citizen center, nobody's ever there, there's never a line, it's LA, whatever, right? You know why? Because we have plenty of voting areas.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's never a line. And so this time, there's a line around the corner. I'm like, what the, right? And I thought, oh my God, Hillary's gonna win easy. Okay, this is my bullshit anecdotal evidence because
In West LA, there was a line?
yeah, no. And look, West LA is obviously super irrelevant. It's a very liberal place. Of course, Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide. Of course, she's going to win California. It's not relevant, right? Although it'll be relevant to our discussion in a minute. No, that to me signaled people are motivated to go vote against Trump. Like people were like, no, I got to get up in the morning. I got to go make sure that I'm going to vote against Trump. That was my reading of it, and I grant you that it's just totally my reading of it, and it could be a different reason.
So yeah. I've been saying for the last week, maybe 2 weeks, because we have a friends email group where we communicate with our friends. Look, this election is over, okay? Trump cannot win. He can't win for a number of reasons. I mean, putting aside his xenophobia, racism, sexism, and all that gets Latinos and other groups to vote in large numbers. He's incompetent. He's just flat out incompetent. He had a chance to win this, and I think he could have if he had just played his cards right, but he didn't. He played every single thing he did wrong. And one of the things he doesn't do right is the ground game. To me, those basic things like infrastructure, people on the ground, get the vote out, those things are critical. It's one thing for a person to say, yeah, I hate Hillary, I'm gonna vote Trump. It's a whole different matter for that person to go out and actually vote. He's not gonna do it. So I always thought this election was over a long time ago. Because you don't just make up that ground game in an instant. That takes months and months of preparation, which he never did. Yeah. So I always thought this election, I mean, in terms of the popular vote, would be always gonna be kind of close, but the electoral vote won't be close at all. I think he's gonna win by, I think Hillary will have 320 electoral votes when it's all said and done, plus or minus 5. So I never bought into your fear mongering.
I mean, the degree to which there's so many things wrong there. You're right on a number of things, but one, it wasn't fear-mongering because, again, if you think...
Of course I was kidding around.
No, I know, but he was constantly accused of fear-mongering. I mean, so...
That's why I'm kidding.
Yeah, okay, but I got you. So, but I mean, because, of course, if there's a 1% chance that a meteor hits the Earth, you're going to freaking panic and do all you can to make sure the meteor doesn't hit the Earth because the result is devastating, and I would argue that the result was devastating. But where I think you're wrong is about, like, I mean, I hear you, all those things are right. But there was a moment, especially after the Comey letter, where obviously it appeared to be changing, and it got considerably closer. And we don't really know. And we also know that, in Great Britain, and the demographics are different here, but there was a sentiment, a degree of anger and a degree of a sense of regular people who felt disaffected from the political process, and they took a sledgehammer to it. They had a rare opportunity that we're almost never given in this country to say to the establishment, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know exactly what the result of what I'm doing is, but I get to say F you, and I get to break everything. And that is going to feel
I agree
great.
with you, Ben, and that's the reason why it'll be even that close.
Right, but we don't. So, but if you're conceding that it might be that close, then
by close, I'm saying that's the reason why it's like 320 to whatever the.
I got you, but you're mistaken.
Otherwise, it'll be like a Reagan-Mondale landslide.
It might be. In which case, but
no, I'm saying it won't be because of that anger. If the anger wasn't there, it will be a Reagan.
But so you're conceding that the anger might make it close, but can't put him over the edge. And if the anger is that strong, it might have put him over the edge. I don't think it will now, but
No, my point is that anger would make it as close as 320 to whatever it's going to be.
But but it's more likely. There was no chance that Hillary Clinton was going to lose the popular vote and win electorally. That was like a 0.1 chance. At some point, there was like according at least to 538 and some others, we were up to like a 9% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win the popular vote but lose the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Look, up until Saturday night, and I was mid-panic Saturday night, I wrote some emails Saturday night because I'm looking at New Hampshire polling, and he's winning on Saturday, okay? I'm looking at the Nevada polling, and he's winning. And now, so I'm looking at Real Clear Politics. Ben will tell me, no, look at all the polls that go to 538. But I looked at 538. And there's a good case to make that based on the last 2 or 3 polls in Nevada and New Hampshire, he was winning. In Pennsylvania, it looked like he was within 2. Now, if you think that's a cakewalk, you're crazy.
And same with Michigan. We had tied polls in Michigan.
Here's why I thought that, okay? Back in 2008, there was a lot of tightening of the race between Romney and Obama towards the end. And there was all this talk about how Nevada is trending Romney, blah, 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 and they're within like the margin of error. But then I read that Obama had like 280 offices in Nevada, and Romney had 3. I was like, oh, Nevada's over. And then Obama won it by like 4 or 7 points, like way, I think 7, yeah, way bigger than the margin that the polling showed. So yes, the polling's important, but what's more important is the underlying infrastructure that people don't really look at because that's much harder to do, I suppose, or that's sexy.
But that's why there's 2 elements to this that are very important, and then we'll get into the policy issues. But part of the reason we're having this discussion now is, hey, should you have been afraid to vote for a third party, especially if you live in a swing state, right? Or no, she was going to win anyway. Just calm down and vote your conscience or whatever, right? So it's part of the conversation. But so the 2 relevant things here are, look, you've got what I called last night on the postgame Megxit, right? A combination of Michigan and Brexit that I put together for why things can go in an unexpected direction.
You're a genius.
I am.
I used it when I was talking to my brother, and I was like, I said, which Cenk and I started calling Megxit, combining Michigan and Brexit. And he goes, what?
Well, if Trump wins, it's going to be Trexit. Okay, so, which is a little catchy. But anyway, the reason why Michigan went the way that it is was because, as we all know, it was an open primary. So they polled likely Democratic voters, but you had people that were more people voting than were likely, which is based on previous elections, people who voted in previous elections, and you had more than Democrats voting. So that was an 18-point swing in the polls that was unexpected. So that's gigantic. Brexit was not as big, but still there was a swing that was a little unexpected. And then part of it was the same phenomenon, the populist phenomenon of, I'm going to take a break and through your establishment window. So that's Megxit, right? So, by the way, we're all too cavalier here. I think on Saturday, all the way to Monday, yesterday, when I did at Showtime, before Ben brought in all those new polls, I had it at 35% chance that he could win, which is significant. Now with the new polls in the last 24 hours, I'll bring it down to 10 to 15%. That's a big, big swing. Okay, but you guys
there are literally people who do the numbers, and you just won't give them their number.
No. No,
You
because
got the check number.
Because they're not taking Megxit into account enough, right? And so, look, I can go on and on. But the bottom line is, you guys are all still being too cavalier. My over/under on heart attacks is 2 for today.
I'm not.
So,
I'm not even a little cavalier. I'm terrified.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, because
I'm cavalier.
I'm cavalier.
Totally cavalier.
Totally
Totally cavalier.
I am
Cavalier.
from Cleveland. That's
right.
how much of a cavalier
I feel like
I
a
am.
Virginia cavalier.
Oh, interesting. A disagreement I didn't expect there. University of Virginia Cavaliers versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I'm a little farther left.
The Cavalier Progressives.
We're cavalier. Well, for me, I'm cavalier for 2 reasons. One, Hillary's gonna win anyway, so who cares? Number 2, I actually don't know. Okay, and I'm amused by those who think they're so certain.
Sure.
I don't know who is better or worse. Okay. Yes. You can
As far as legislation getting done,
Right.
Not as people.
And yes, he's a much worse person, I would say. Okay. But even that, I don't know. There's issues. But in terms of policy, in terms of impact on the country today, but also more importantly, like 5, 10, 15 years from today, I don't know who's better. I don't know who's worse. Okay, so this idea that one guy's clearly worse, I just
100
don't
to
buy
nothing.
it.
How obvious it is.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So that's so there's a so that's the refrain, right? But then I just look a little deeper, think a
No, I
little
looked
harder.
really deep and really hard
And-
also. Super
and-
deep. I've never gone so deep.
It's
the
just-
deepest I've ever been.
It is ironic that you're saying vote for the establishment while wearing cufflinks.
Throws a cufflinks card out there.
And
Okay.
No, Donald Trump is allowing
So let
Donald
me
Trump to
make
win
my
is a
point.
real vote against the establishment. You're
so
right.
my point, I'm not saying anyone to vote for
No one's
Donald
saying
Trump.
yes to
No
Donald
one's saying
Trump.
to vote for Donald Trump because he is a wild card. But I'm saying that I'm not the only one making the point. That it's, in fact, Malcolm X made the point in '64 about Goldwater versus Johnson, that it's better to have the imperialists and the capitalists knew that nobody would go towards the fox, which was Johnson, unless they were given a wolf, which was Goldwater. And so everybody was afraid of nuclear war, and at the same time, he was invading Southeast Asia and killing 3 million people. So the people like Malcolm X said, it's good to have an ugly face on those bad policies. Right now, we have a nice face on those bad policies. Barack Obama is super popular because these other 2 people running for president, they are hated so much. So his numbers are higher than they've ever been because people are like, oh shit, we're going to lose Barack Obama and we're going to get stuck with one of these 2. And so right now, his approval rating's at 58%, and he's trying to pass the TPP in a lame duck. He's going to try and do that. That's the Democrat. So that's what's wrong with the Democratic Party. That's why half the country doesn't want to vote for Hillary. At the time she's trying to get working people to believe her, yet her president is pushing a job-crushing, climate-killing trade deal that everyone knows it is, just like NAFTA. She's been running away from NAFTA ever since they passed it, and here we are doing the same thing. So Donald Trump, immediately he gets scrutinized. What's going to happen when the Democrats are going to go back to sleep when Hillary Clinton becomes president? They're going to go to sleep. I think it's important to stay awake. Donald Trump would wake up everybody. He would be overly scrutinized. He's already destroying the Republican Party. He's such an incompetent. He's going to lose this frickin' race to the second most hated person in the world. And that's what an incompetent he is. So I'm saying, just like Steve, we don't know what would have happened. Bernie Sanders, they say he was such a knucklehead that and dreamer, he wouldn't be able to bring health care to people, but somehow Donald Trump's going to get the United States to turn into a fascist state that's going to start imprisoning minorities. By the way, the crime bill did that in '96. So my point is that no one knows what would happen. A lot of people smarter than me make the case that it's better to have an ugly face on these neocon policies instead of a nice face of a Democrat, because Democrats can only get stuff done that Republicans dream of. Right now, we have the NAFTA pass. We deregulated Wall Street. They gutted welfare. A Democrat did all those things. People smarter than me have made the point that Republicans could never have done that stuff and that Bill Clinton was the greater evil. I'm not saying that Donald Trump wouldn't be a greater evil or would. I'm saying no one really knows. But all the evidence is that he's a huge incompetent who's destroying his own party right now, as predicted.
Okay, as quickly as I can, let me make 3 counterpoints. First of all, Malcolm X, well-known hater of Hillary Clinton. So let's just discount his opinion. No, seriously, on the Fox versus Wolf point. So he's right. That's why in the primaries I was screaming, don't elect the Fox. It's going to be a Fox versus Wolf trap, right? So elect the guy who's actually not a Fox or a Wolf, Bernie Sanders, right? Who actually has your best interest in mind. But once that vote was over, they laid the fox versus wolf trap on us. I know that. I talk about that all the time. But that doesn't mean handing the country over to a wolf is the better strategy. See, the reason why that trap works is because there really is a fucking wolf, and Trump is the wolf. So sometimes I say wannabe fascist, sometimes I say borderline fascist, but I think it's fair to just call him fascist.
What would you think would happen if he became president? What would you think would happen?
Okay, so that leads me to my second point, which is you view his incompetence as, don't worry about it, he's incompetent, can't get any of his terrible ideas done. I view it as, no, his incompetence is the most dangerous part of the Trump thing. Yeah, I know he's bigoted against Muslims, Mexicans, apparently Jews, and certainly blacks, and the list goes on and on. But no, I think his incompetence is more dangerous because George W. Bush, look at what he did. Hurricane Katrina. Okay, I don't know. What are we going to do? Prepare? No, let's just let Louisiana get flooded. Oh, shit, right? Iraq, the fourth slide. First slide is, hey, how do we enter Iraq? Second slide is, how do we go up to Baghdad? The third slide is, how do we capture Baghdad? The fourth slide literally said TBD, to be determined. Didn't have a fucking plan for how you occupy Iraq after you take Baghdad. That turned into hundreds of thousands of civilians killed. That turned into 50,000 of our guys maimed and wounded, over thousands of our guys killed. That led to ISIS eventually taking over half of Iraq and half of Syria.
Kind of like what's happening in Syria and Libya under who?
No. So you're 100% wrong about that. I'll get to that in a second, okay? So the incompetence is what led to the most catastrophic, let alone, hey, should I regulate the banks? No, fuck it, I won't regulate the banks. Oh, shit. 8 million people just lost their jobs in the Great Recession, okay?
That was the smartest minds on Wall Street who did that, Cenk.
It was a combination. That's also absolutely true. Now, Steve, you're right when you say, hey, Hillary Clinton was in favor of more bombings and staying in Iraq longer. I understand that. And she did Libya, and I get all that. But when you say, Bush, Gore, what the fuck? It doesn't make a difference.
But I'm not saying Bush, Gore.
Hold on. I'm voting for Nader because I'm going to vote my conscience. Well, we lived that in 2000. Gore would not have invaded Iraq. And he would have done other things. Maybe you think he's the fox and those would have been dangerous part of the systemic corruption. Yada. I don't know. I like Gore. I'm biased.
I also like Gore.
Okay? And Gore cares a tremendous about climate change, right? At a minimum, he cares a lot about that.
I think Gore and Hillary are fundamentally different.
Fundamentally different. Okay. But so he would not have invaded Iraq. And so that we would have never had ISIS. We would have, all those hundreds of thousands of civilians wouldn't have been dead. So yes, sometimes there is a wolf, and sometimes the incompetence makes a giant difference. Not sometimes, almost all the time it makes a giant difference.
So what you're doing is you're blaming the Iraq war on the Nader vote. Ralph Nader opposed the Iraq war. Hillary Clinton supported it, and now you're saying to vote for the person who supported the thing that you say was the fucking mistake of the century.
Hillary Clinton did
That's unbelievable.
No, it isn't unbelievable.
That's crazy logic.
Jimmy, that logic.
That's crazy.
No, your logic is crazy. Hillary Clinton didn't take us to war in Iraq. She supported the war. If Hillary Clinton had been president, we wouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. There was one guy who would have taken us to war.
You don't know that.
No, Jimmy, I don't. I don't know anything. And if that's your argument, if that's your guys' argument,
she fucking supported it.
It's 11:20.
That's unbelievable. That's just like that's not consistent logic.
No, you don't have consistent logic.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton did not. If your argument is going to be each time you don't know that, then I'm going to take the next 40 minutes off. Because,
what do you mean?
Of course, none of us know anything for sure. Maybe Donald Trump would be great. Maybe he'd unify the progressive movement and there'd be a huge progressive president in 2020. But you guys have said 5 times we don't know what's going to happen. Of course we don't. We're rational people. We're analyzing the data that we have and making what we all both think are logical conclusions. So no, I don't know what's going to happen. Now, the notion that Hillary Clinton would have taken us to war in Iraq is not backed by any serious people. None. Hillary Clinton voted for it. It's a shameful vote. It was a reason to vote against her in the Democratic primary. We all voted against her in the Democratic primary. Millions of other people did too, because she not only made the wrong call, she abdicated leadership on it and waited forever to change her mind, whereas other Democrats at least recognized sooner, that was a mistake, I regret my vote, and I'm coming out against it. She waited until a moment when there was no political fallout for her coming out against it, at a time when she was the most important Democrat in the country and could have made a difference.
You're making my argument.
Hold on.
Hold on.
I'm making
on this. I want to move on. On this one, I agree with you. I don't think she would have invaded Iraq because the invasion of Iraq was so incomprehensibly bizarre because they had nothing to do with 9/11. Would she have invaded other countries? I have no idea, but she would not have invaded Iraq. That was a policy that was espoused by Cheney and the Bushes and all those guys. But here's the thing about Hillary Clinton. She embraces openly the policies of Kissinger and Negroponte. She's proud of it. And she's repeatedly said that she will have a more muscular foreign policy. She has her fingers tied to basically every single arms dealer and the sale of arms. Her people in the State Department, who used to be in charge of the foreign arms export policies, they are now lobbyists for our biggest arms dealers. And they are gleeful that we have all this instability because they want to sell more arms. So the notion that Hillary Clinton is somehow some sort of pacifist or she will keep us out of war
Nobody thinks she's a pacifist.
or anything along those lines is ridiculous. The idea that somehow we are more or that we're more likely to have less war with Hillary than Donald Trump is completely unfounded.
No, that's that. I have that at exactly 50-50.
Yeah.
So I have.
I don't know that
support
either.
Clinton over
so
Trump
we agree,
on other grounds.
So we agree on the issue of foreign policy and war that we don't know who is worse, Trump or Hillary at this point.
And let me just be.
No, I don't establish that at all.
Okay, so we all have a little slightly different opinion here. Let me just firmly establish what I think on those grounds because it's important. I agree that Hillary Clinton is part of War Incorporated, but at the same time, she was also part of the team that stopped us going to war with Iran. So, like you think she wouldn't have gone to war with Iraq, she has been against wars that would have been catastrophic. Okay, now Jimmy, I hear you. She voted for it, which was callous, which was political calculation, and that was one of the reasons I used in the primaries because. I mean, what kind of person says, let's go kill a couple 100,000 people for my political well-being, okay? So, yeah, that's War Incorporated. Yes, she's muscular, yada, yada. But she wouldn't have done Iraq on her own, as you acknowledged, Steve. She stopped the war with Iran, which is real, which is something very, very, very important. She didn't do it single-handedly. Obama led that, and she was a little skeptical, but I would have been shocked if she had gone to war with Iran. Not shocked. Shocked is too strong. Surprised, okay? Now, on the other hand, with Trump.
Just a real quick question for you, Cenk, on that point. I agree with you that everyone who was a part and parcel of the treaty with Iran should get credit.
Yeah.
And for
Huge
her,
credit.
she gets credit for that too. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll be totally fair. That said, would you think that she would have done the war in Iran if there was significant political pressure from the American public or from other politicians? For example, let's say there was some Iranian terrorist who came here and did some sort of terrorist act and the country was in a war mood. Would she have the leadership to say, no, cooler heads can prevail, I will keep us out of war? Or would she push
If
the button
Iranians
together?
came here and engaged in terrorism and they were sent by the Iranian government, no, she'd go to war and Americans would back her.
Not by the government.
Okay, so look, that's
Like a 9/11
a
scenario.
very hard question because if she's a senator and there is a fervor to go to war with Iran, she'll vote yes. We know because we already saw that. It already happened, right, in Iraq. If she's the president and she gets to drive the train, then I don't know. So, and I say that I don't know literally, like, yeah, I could see her getting, like if she gets pressured by the war machine and Fox News and the Republicans and her popularity is slipping and slipping, is she beyond, starting a war to help herself politically? I don't think she's beyond it. Wow. And I think a lot of Hillary Clinton supporters might be really angry at me for saying that. They say, how dare you, et cetera. But no, I know from Iraq war vote that she's not beyond it, okay? So now, but let's turn to the other side because this is not a who's the better angel. This is the keep it real. Who do we think is more dangerous or is going to cause more harm, right? So on the Republican side, if you had the Bushes and the Rubios of the world that are completely controlled by the neocons, it's a no-brainer. They're worse than Hillary Clinton, okay? Trump is ironically not a no-brainer in this category, okay? So, but again, his incompetence is what worries me. So,
Chief Foreign Policy Advisor is John Bolton.
And yes, keep that in mind. So his incompetence is on two grounds.
Hillary Clinton wants Joe Biden to continue as Secretary of State and praises the work of John Kerry. Donald Trump's chief foreign policy officer is Donald Trump. You can throw out Henry Kissinger, John Bolton. Yeah. You can throw out the names John Negroponte and Henry Kissinger. Those essentially people she's talked to. They are not top advisors. They're not advisors in any way of Hillary Clinton. But we know John Bolton.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Bolton is horrendous. So
so let me just finish that, because that's part one of incompetence is he, just like George Bush, according to his advisors, he listens to the last guy in the room because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, right? So hiring Bolton goes, I don't know. Like, if you really are a non-interventionist, as Trump claimed throughout the primaries and to some degree in the general election, you would never, ever hire John Bolton. But the guy doesn't know anything.
I agree. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. So that's part. So he's going to stack, his advisors are going to stack his cabinet and his staff full of neocons who are going to drive him to war, and he's not even going to realize it because he's so goddamn stupid.
And we know that he is tempted and persuaded by talk of, we're going to get tough. We're going to show him what means business. And we know where that talk leads when dumb people say that.
Okay, and then finally, last part of it. The second part of the incompetence is somebody gets under his skin. This is not overhyped. He's really out of control. So you think that he can't blunder into a war with North Korea, and oops, they just launched the missiles and we just lost 680,000 people living in South Korea? He can do that because he doesn't know any better. And when they say, hey, Mr. President, we really don't want to do that. It's North Korea. Well, I can't believe he said that. No, we're going to show him who's boss, right? No, but Mr. President, they have all these missiles pointed at Seoul, South Korea, let alone Japan, let alone the more unlikely Seattle, Washington, et cetera, right?
Two countries that don't pay their freight. Why should we back them?
Yeah. So on almost Seoul, South Korea alone, I can't countenance Donald Trump as president.
He did say that we should pull the troops out of South Korea. And as soon as he said that, North Korea said, we thought he was a buffoon. Turns out he's a wise man.
So you see, and I'm not trying to play an emotional card here because you're Korean. But you see my point, Steve, that is dangerous.
I hear you. And if your overall argument is that Trump has a lower floor than Hillary, I agree with you, because he's a wild card. He could be catastrophically bad. At the same time, he could be neutered because there will be such a strong coalition of voices against him. And I just want to make one point clear on this, okay?
Who?
Everyone, hold on, Ben. So here's my point. Right now, there's just unbelievable violence and breach of constitutional rights and just the worst kind of oligarchy in North Dakota right now, with the protesters just getting their heads smashed in, maced, tortured, stripped naked, thrown into dog. I mean, horrible stuff happening.
Threatening journalists.
Yeah, journalists are being arrested. All the stuff that you wish you would never see at the behest of corporate America that's kind of taken over.
People don't want that happening.
And all these cops are working on their behalf. If we had Trump or any Republican in office right now as our president, we would have every single Democratic senator howling, why isn't the president doing something about this? Is anyone going to do anything on behalf of these water protectors? This is tribal land, it's their sovereign territory, all of that. There hasn't been anything said. And Barack Obama, who is very popular, and I like him too, at a personal level, I have a lot of problems with his policies, but he has literally said, we're going to let this play out. Both sides have to make sure that they don't hurt the other side. Both sides? Are you kidding me? One side is armed to the teeth with riot gear and helicopters and attack dogs.
And tanks.
The other side has literally feathers, and they're singing peace songs and worshiping. So,
Steve, I'm totally with you on that. We cover that literally more than anyone else. Okay, what do you think Trump would do to the water protectors?
No. That's not my point.
His point is that the Democratic leadership puts the natural opposition to that to sleep. And what Trump presidency does is it wakes everybody up because he puts an ugly face on what's happening. And right now, I know people are thinking, well, if something was really wrong in North Dakota, Barack Obama would do something about it. I heard what he said, and he said he's going to let it play out. So that must be the right thing to do. So that's what's the problem. So can I just make real quick points? I don't want to argue for a Trump presidency. I keep getting suckered into that. It's my own fault. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to see a Trump presidency more than just. My thing is that I think whatever we want as progressives is going to meet, as Kshama Sawant told us, a graveyard inside the Democratic Party. Anytime they fight when she had to fight for the $15 minimum wage, she had to fight against the Democratic Party. If we're going to stop the TPP, we're going to have to fight against the Democratic Party. If we want to re-regulate Wall Street, we're going to have to fight against the Democratic Party. So I think the Democratic Party, because when they got in bed with Wall Street, which happened during the Clinton administration, that was a conscious decision. That just wasn't the normal order of things. It was Bill Clinton's conscious decision to turn from going towards the workers of the base of this country to going towards Wall Street and now Silicon Valley. Who populates the Democratic Party now? Wall Street insiders and Silicon Valley. They used to be the party of workers and unions. Bill Clinton and Al Gore made a conscious decision to turn away from that, to turn their backs on workers. That's why we're in the situation we're in right now, because both political parties has consciously turned their backs on workers. Bill Clinton unwound the New Deal unlike any Republican could only have dreamt about doing. So that's the problem with keep voting. That's what got us here. Bill Clinton was the greater evil. I'm not the first one to say that. A lot of people smarter than me have said that.
A lot of people smarter than you also say he wasn't.
Yeah. That he was the greater evil. And if you look at his record, he did shit that Ronald Reagan dreamt of. He did all the stuff that they want. By the way, he had a private deal to privatize. He had a secret deal with Newt Gingrich to privatize Social Security. Remember when George Bush tried to do that 8 years later? They stopped him. When a Republican tries to do those horrible things, he gets stopped. He couldn't. George Herbert Walker Bush couldn't push NAFTA through Congress. It took a Democrat. That's not my analysis. That's people way smarter than me. So what I'm saying right now
smarter than you,
is if we keep doing so, I'm saying in 2009, America came to a turning point and it failed to turn. People, they should have broken up the banks. Instead of having a jobs program, what they did was they cut unemployment benefits and they took the union rights away from teachers. Our government, the levers of power is seized up. It has failed to be able to respond rationally to problems. That's all Paul Krugman's been talking about. That's what Chris Hedges has been talking about. Our government has failed. It has lost its ability to respond to problems rationally. Half the country is poor or in poverty in the richest country the face of the earth has ever seen. And the Democrats' policies is to make it frickin' worse. TPP, right now, making it worse. We have to have trade deals, but we know, Dean Baker has showed us that when you make a trade deal, you decide who you're going to protect and who you're not going to protect, and who you're going to benefit and who you're not going to benefit. Who gets benefited? Owners. Who loses? Everyone else. Sick people, poor people, workers, everyone else loses except them. And that's what happens when you have a Democrat making that policy. If we had George Bush making that policy or Mitt Romney making that policy, I think we'd have a better chance to stop them. So that I'm not saying
things got better for workers between 2001 and 2009?
I think things have gotten worse for workers in the last 40 years. So once we all became neoliberals, we threw the fucking workers overboard.
I don't know what that term is.
And right now, NAFTA threw them overboard. Had a corporate, as Sheldon Woolen has taught us, there's been a corporate coup d'etat in America in slow motion, and it is complete. Barack Obama, the Democrats went from being the party of union and labor, and when Barack Obama ran against Mitt Romney, he got more money from Wall Street than they did. It is complete. Right now, the Democratic Party's mission in the primary was not to defeat the Republicans because they elevated Trump. What they do, their mission was to defeat the agenda of workers because Democrats are in bed with Wall Street. So they first had to defeat the agenda of the workers, which was defeat Bernie Sanders, and then they moved on to Donald Trump. And now they say, you got no other choice. I just saw Howard Dean. He was being confronted by Katie Couric on Yahoo News. And she said, all these trade deals that they make, how come they never try to help out the people who get left behind? And Howard Dean said, because the people in Washington don't know anything and they live in a bubble. They literally don't know anything. And she said, well, then why are you telling us to vote for Hillary Clinton? And he said, because we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice because they made this choice. And if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to keep going down this line. I say vote progressive. I say it's time to vote for a Green Party. I think it's time to leave the Democratic Party. And we try to get, if they get 5% in the Greens, that's a great thing for America.
Okay, I'm going to let Ben respond. I just want to let everybody know. This debate is brought to you by the Young Turks members. Normally we would do this kind of stuff for members all the time because they finance our show, tytnetwork.com/join. But today it's election day. We wanted to make sure that everybody got a full hearing of all the different points of view. There's a ton of things I want to say about what Jimmy just said. I'm going to let Ben go next. But again, thank you. And if you join today, you make independent media and these conversations possible. tytnetwork.com/join.
I don't have much to say. Jimmy, with an impassioned argument for what's wrong with the Democratic Party, I agree with about 85% of it. None of that is a reason not to vote for Hillary Clinton. None of it. Things got worse for American workers between 2001 and 2009. But yes, it's true. It's been a 40-year run, and we need to change it. Donald Trump, to me, allowing Donald Trump to win, and a vote of people who are ideologically lean toward the left, to not vote for Hillary Clinton, to not vote against the only person who can beat Donald Trump, is a gigantic risk that I don't think any rational American should make. The point I was making about Hillary and the Iraq War earlier, whenever that was Cenk was not blaming the Nader voters for the Iraq War. We blamed George Bush and Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz for the Iraq War, obviously. That's the only rational person you can blame for the Iraq War. Nor do we blame, as you like to point out, and it's certainly true, that 1 million Florida Democrats voted for...
300,000 Democrats voted for George Bush.
300,000 Democrats. But that's because party affiliation, that happens all the time. Those are probably conservatives who still call themselves Democrats, who probably always vote Republican. So the issue is, when you are ideologically aligned, as most Nader voters were with Al Gore on most issues, that you run a gigantic risk, and we saw that risk. So when there is an ideological tie to one candidate much more stronger than the other, you in a system where only two people can win, that's the damage you do. So the Nader voters and Nader himself bear some of the responsibility for allowing George Bush to win. Their motives were totally pure. I get it. I don't want to shake them and yell at them, but that is what happens. And so it does not have to do with Florida Democrats, and they're not responsible for the Iraq War, but there are repercussions for these decisions. There is only one candidate who can beat Donald Trump, and that candidate is Hillary Clinton. It doesn't negate the things that you said at all. Those are reasonable things. And as I continue to argue, and I hope it's true, I think Hillary Clinton is incredibly malleable. She is a political creature who makes decisions based on how it will impact her power. And for the first time, unlike it turns out in 2009, that was a movement for change and a rejection of George W. Bush in an exciting time, and we all bought into hope and change. But he was always a fairly pragmatic politician, Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton is too. There is clearly, based on what Bernie Sanders has accomplished, based on the fact that Elizabeth Warren is the second most famous Democrat in Washington, that there's a real progressive movement here. And now we have a chance with a recognized movement, hopefully with Bernie Sanders under a Democratic president as Senate Finance Committee chairman, to apply that pressure to the levers of power. That pressure cannot be applied to a Donald Trump administration with any degree of effectiveness. And most often when you give despots and authoritarians and guys with fascist leanings at the very least, you give them power, they keep power, and they flex that power. And I will only add, as I'll probably do again, even if nothing else, judges, voting rights, which to me is the most important issue in this country. Republicans talk about day after day after day after day, they talk about voting fraud. There's only one kind of voter fraud in this country, and it's done by Republicans to keep minorities from voting.
It's election fraud.
It's election fraud, and they do it on a very consistent basis. And no matter what you say about the Democratic Party, that one they've been good at, and they'll continue to be good at.
Not sure about that during the primaries, but anyway, go ahead.
There was no fraud during the primaries, for crying out loud. They didn't keep people from voting. And so now we need to redo that system to make that a fairer system. I agree completely. But minority voting rights are protected by Democrats. The climate change is much better. Al Gore has actively campaigning for Hillary Clinton's election. Judges, voting rights, climate change. If nothing else, that's worth it right there. Donald Trump cannot be allowed to have those three levers of power.
All right, I want to jump in for a second. Just real fast, I don't want to get into a big discussion on the voting fraud issue during the primaries. There was absolutely voter suppression. Okay.
Where?
I agree with Steve. Rhode Island, Arizona.
Yeah.
They closed down polling stations.
They did. voter purges in Brooklyn. There was definitely suppression of votes.
Two people lost their jobs in Brooklyn because of it.
That being said, everything you've outlined, Ben, makes total sense. So I don't begrudge those who hold their nose and vote for Hillary because they think that's a more rational path forward. That's fine. Again, I don't know. They might be right. I do have a problem with people who think Hillary is actually a good candidate and buy into the ridiculous narrative that she's going to do all these great things for the progressives. I mean, I just don't believe her. I hope, but here's the thing: I want to believe her. Like I want to be excited for a Clinton presidency. I want to be excited to have the first woman president. I wish I could vote for her, but I cannot. I can't do it for all the reasons that Jimmy outlined before. And so I'm going to vote. So I did vote. I voted for Jill Stein. I didn't vote for her as much as I voted for the Green Party. I want the Green Party to have the 5%. I want them to get matching federal funds. I want to grow the third party movement. I want to have more choices going forward. I think the choices that we're stuck with today are the result of years of choosing the lesser of two evils, years of buying into this two-party system, and I'm tired of it. And if this means that, I know my one vote won't make a difference, but if people like me change this election and we have Donald Trump as our president, well, that's a chance I'm willing to take, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And hopefully, no matter who is the president, whether it's Trump or Hillary, I'm almost certain it'll be Hillary, that we will mobilize and all fight for the right things. Because at the end of the day, everyone at this table wants the same thing. We want a better country. We want better accountability from our government. We want progressive values, money out of politics, climate change, less war, renewable energies, all of that. So we're all on the same page. Less income inequality, more social mobility. We want the exact same things. We disagree here on what's the best path to get there.
Yeah, so let me go to the core of the argument then. So, in my opinion. So, look, I agree with Jimmy's rant against the corporate coup, probably 90% or more, okay? I'm the one who started talking about, getting money out of politics back in 2011 when I started Wolfpack, right? And the money is what leads to the corporate takeover because it allows them to legally bribe politicians. So I understand all that. I actually have less hope for Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party than you guys do. Because you guys keep talking about it like, you guys are wrong to, she probably won't go in these progressive directions. I think she has almost no chance of going in those progressive directions. I think she will go in the direction that she is funded. And it's not just the systemic corruption, which I think is 98% of the answer normally in politics, but I read the Podesta emails. I know how Hillary Clinton thinks behind the scenes, and she has internalized it. She really believes that Wall Street has the answer for the problems of Wall Street. She says it over and over again, not just in her speeches, but she says, her staff talk about it in reference to that. So I have less hope for Hillary Clinton, not just than Ben does, but than I think you guys do. I think you're still holding out hope that she could be a progressive somehow. I'm not. So that doesn't mean that there isn't a wolf. Okay, there is still a wolf. The wolf is not imaginary. George Bush was the wolf. We did invade Iraq. We did crash the economy. We did let Louisiana drown, okay? There is a wolf, and his name is Donald Trump. So, yeah, I know what the fox is, but it's not as bad as the wolf. So now we go to Nader, right, in Florida. So Nader is an American hero. He got Richard Nixon to pass the EPA. He got Richard Nixon to do OSHA. On seatbelts alone, he has saved millions of lives. It cannot be undercounted. That guy's a demigod, and he does not get the credit that he deserves. Having said that, now in Florida, yes, Al Gore should have done better. Yes, the butterfly ballot. Yes, 1,000 other things that went wrong. And by the way, Al Gore won Florida.
He won it.
He won. So Supreme Court.
He won 500,000 more freaking votes in the country.
So the people who are most responsible for the wolf of George Bush is the 5 Supreme Court justices who voted based on politics and not based on ideology. They argued for state rights their whole life, and when it came to crunch time, they said, screw states' rights, we're just going to give it to our political ally, George Bush.
He was appointed by judicial fiat,
Right.
Cenk. He didn't win the election.
No, I understand that. And by the way, if you don't know what we're referring to, go back and read the recount of that all the major newspapers did, New York Times, Gannett, Associated Press, by every recount.
Not every recount.
Every recount, but the one that Gore asked for, which only recounted three counties. Every full recount of Florida.
I don't think that's right.
No, that is
No,
right.
that's right.
You,
That's right.
Like, go back, we can Google it, etc. Every full recount of Florida, Al Gore won. He was the rightfully elected president of the United States. Anyway, but my point is, but among those factors was people voting for Ralph Nader.
I'm not sure about that because exit polls, I don't know if this is true, but exit polls say that among the Ralph Nader voters, okay, more of them would have voted for Bush than Gore.
I categorically reject that.
I'm just
okay.
The
So
exit polls,
the idea that Ralph Nader's super liberal voters were going to vote for Bush is insanity. So I hear you, and I'll look up the bullshit exit polls that you're referring to.
No,
okay?
you're right. It might be bullshit, but that's what the exit polls show.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's. You know that it's like saying the Bernie Sanders supporters are all going to vote for Donald Trump. Like, we have a conversation about, they're not voting for Donald Trump. They might vote for Jill Stein, but they're not voting for Donald Trump, okay? A sliver of them might, but not the majority. That's insane talk, okay? So, yes, Nader did have an effect. He did have an effect. As much as I love the guy and respect the guy, he had an effect. And so that leads us to, okay, you guys are comfortable in California. You get to vote for Jill Stein, and I think your 5% point is the best point that you guys have, okay? But you live in a swing state, and you think Michigan and Pennsylvania are comfortably blue, but they're not. I mean, 2 days ago, there's polls showing ties, 2 points, etc. Nevada, New Hampshire, not comfortable. Virginia, not comfortable. Florida, nowhere near comfortable. Here we are again in Florida. And you vote for Jill Stein, you are making a moral choice. Nothing against Jill Stein. I interviewed her 3 times. Lovely person. I agree with a lot of her policies.
It's not about her because she can't win. It's about the party.
So my point is, let's take the state of Florida as the example, right? Super close election today in Florida, okay? So when you make a choice to vote for her, you are making a moral choice because you're taking a vote away from Hillary Clinton. Now, I know that you hate that kind of talk, but it is real. I'm the last person on earth to bullshit you on this. If the establishment was trying to trick you, but in fact the Jill Stein vote would help Hillary Clinton, I'd tell you. But it doesn't. It takes a vote away from her. It makes a Donald Trump win in Florida slightly more likely. It is one of the factors that makes it slightly more likely. And that is a risk I am not willing to countenance.
I hear you. But why does a Jill Stein voter, why is that person more culpable than a non-voter?
No, not more culpable. That's why it's not like the Nader voters were the most culpable or more culpable, but they are a factor. It is a factor.
Jack, I literally would not vote because I could not vote for more war. I could not.
But you're making a moral choice, Jimmy. You're just pretending you're not, okay? Because the reality is either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton's going to be president. We hate that. I hate it, you hate it, we hate it, right? I wish it was Bernie Sanders, I wish it was somebody else. But you know as a matter of fact, stone cold fact, that tomorrow either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton is going to be, elected president, right?
Right.
And so every non-vote and every vote for a third party that doesn't go to Hillary Clinton in a swing state like Florida is a vote that helps Donald Trump become president. I hate that fact, but it is a fact.
So you're saying people who don't vote or vote for anyone other than Hillary are making a morally wrong choice.
I do.
Yeah, but
I'm saying that.
well,
so if I'm farther than Ben, I'll go farther than Ben. I am saying that.
No, I agree.
No,
Except I don't
I
think that it's true about non-voters because some of those non-voters, if they did vote, would vote for Trump. So like I just
And how about Trump
No,
voters?
I thought what they were alluding to. I understand what you're saying.
you
What
think
they're
people
alluding to
voted-
is I can't stand Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. I'm not voting. I would have voted for Hillary Clinton if you put a gun to my head, but you didn't put a gun to my head. I'm not voting.
right. Then I agree with you.
Yeah.
So is it people? So are you saying then everyone who doesn't vote for Hillary Clinton is making an immoral choice with their vote?
Okay, so let me be very clear about this. First of all, it depends on what state you're in. I know we live in an insane country with an insane electoral college, okay? So if you're in California or Rhode Island or Alabama or Mississippi, I understand getting 5% in the vote makes a difference for the next time the Green Party runs and building the third party. I get that, and I think that is by far your best point, okay? If you live in a swing state, What I don't want to hear is people telling me that they're morally superior to us because, hey, I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I made a coward's choice and I didn't vote. I made a coward's choice and I pretended that it didn't matter. I pretended it didn't matter and I'm morally superior to you. Fuck that. No, you're not. Okay? So at best, it's a draw, Jimmy. At best, it's a draw because if you say, hey, I'm not sure who's worse, Trump or Clinton, I say, okay, I don't agree with you, but I hear you on that. And so you're saying it's a draw. I can respect that, right?
Well, it's
but if
total
you
bullshit.
say Trump is definitely worse and I know it, but fuck it, I'm not going to make a choice and I'm going to blame you later because you made that choice. That's unacceptable.
I don't know how many people are in that category, but I agree with you that that's bullshit. Okay, it's not a coward's. But I don't think it's a coward's choice to not vote if you really deeply don't feel like you can cast a vote for someone. By the same token, you're not morally superior because you didn't vote for someone that you think is bad and someone else did. So those who hate Hillary, who are blaming you for being morally defective for voting for Hillary, that's total bullshit. I can't stand that kind of moral judgment that people throw around election time. This is a free country. You can vote for whoever you want to vote for, or you don't have to vote at all, and they're all fine choices to me. Now, if you want to pressure people into voting a certain way, that's fine too. But this moral judgment is total BS from all directions.
I don't think not voting is an acceptable choice. Obviously, you get to do it. I mean, but we're at an opinion-based show, and we're of course you get to do it. Nobody's locking you up. Nobody gets to go to your house and scream at you. But you ought to vote because things are almost never equal. And we all have an ability to assess what might be better or worse for America. I don't see how anyone, given the proclivities of most of the people working here, who can hear what Donald Trump said about women, about Muslims, about blacks, about Latinos, who has emboldened the Klan, who has emboldened white supremacists, who ran his final campaign ad with these pretty unsubtle anti-Semitic images and phrases that has opened a door, a dark, ugly, awful door.
Yes.
That is the same as your objections to Hillary Clinton, which are totally sound objections. They, to me, if you work here, I don't see how they are the same.
They're not the same, Ben.
But then it gets to Cenk's point. They're not the same. So you should make a call.
They're not the same. But this is a crazy thing to say. But in Donald Trump's defense, so far they're all words. Okay,
the words matter.
I know words matter. They're all words. He hasn't done any of that shit.
Yeah, so
and hopefully he won't. Hopefully he won't. But I agree with you. I have the exact same concerns that you have. The problem with Hillary is that she has actually done many of these things that deeply, deeply trouble us.
And then one more thing is that she hasn't shown any capacity for growth. That was a point Robert Scheer made on my show, was that she hasn't, through her whole life, she hasn't shown any capacity for growth, right? So she's an ex-Walmart board member who goes on to gut welfare while exploding the prison population.
She didn't gut welfare. Her husband
You
did.
know what I mean.
Well, it's relevant.
Well, they did run as, do we get 2 for 1?
Well, so no, we didn't get 2 for 1 then.
So
we got 2 for 1 now.
She takes credit for the good things of his administration, so she has to take the shit from the bad parts of it, too. And he's going back into the White House, too. Anyway, now I fucking forgot my point, Ben. God damn it.
She did support that.
That she supported it. She's no growth.
Right, that's it. The no growth. So that's so even after Iraq, okay, if she could, like you said, if she finally did come around to saying it was a mistake or whatever, but she didn't in the 2008 campaign. But then she went on to do Libya, Honduras. She does, and now she wants a more muscular response in Syria. She wants a no-fly zone, which no one's talking about it really seriously. That literally does mean a war, because she's going to shoot down. What she's going to say is she's going to shoot down Russian planes, and then you have to bring ground troops in. That's going to kill a lot of people on the ground.
She's not going to bring in ground troops. She's not going to shoot down Russian planes. And that notion that Jill Stein said, that you said, the notion that calling for a no-fly zone is war is far more scare tactics, warmongering than anybody engaged in on defending Hillary Clinton regarding Putin. There's never been a no-fly zone that we've orchestrated that then led to a war. That's not, I don't know if that's actually true. But the notion that a no-fly zone isn't planned and thought out with allies and that the Russians aren't aware of it. Those are not, you don't just say no-fly zone like, hey, tomorrow we're doing a no-fly zone. There's a Russian plane there, we shot it down, now it's World War III. That's nonsense. That's not how foreign policy works. That's not how the world works.
Well, we are ramping up the Cold War in a big way. Like, we're sending troops to Estonia and Eastern Poland right now. NATO is really ramping up right now. Like, a lot of people are scared. In fact, Even Gorbachev said that we're closer to nuclear war now than any time before in our history. So right now, shit is really like I'm reading about what NATO's doing over there. I have no idea why they're doing and what they're doing.
I don't know that what you're saying is true. I certainly don't agree with it. I don't know that what Gorbachev said. I mean, I'm sure you're not misquoting him, but I mean, I'm not aware of all that NATO is doing. I know that one of these candidates we know will give serious spots at the table to people who are thoughtful and reasoned about foreign policy.
Your John Bolton argument is solid, Ben.
Yeah,
it's a solid argument.
But more than John Bolton, we know what that means. We know who the other people are. Like those are crazy people making these decisions.
Okay, so look, we got to go. We're out of time here, but I have to say two last things, which God knows if you guys respond. Spiral out of control, but
I thought this was 2 hours.
Look, Look, the one thing you guys, some of you might think this is over the top, but it's an analogy. It doesn't mean it's literal, okay? I keep thinking about Sophie's Choice, right? So if you saw that movie from a million years ago, she's a mom. The Nazis come. They say, you got to give me one of your kids, otherwise we're going to take both of your kids, okay? So
my mom would have said, take them both. I haven't had a good night's sleep in a month.
Okay, so it's not easy. Nothing's easy, and that's a horrible, horrible choice and a horrible analogy. I know, but you can say, hey, I didn't choose. I didn't choose, right? But then both your kids are dead.
No, you could just flip a coin.
Yeah, you could, but you've got. My point is, you've got to make a choice because there is a real choice and there is a real wolf. Okay, so
that's why I disagree with you so fundamentally, Cenk, because it is very reasonable for a person to say, I cannot vote for either one of these candidates. I cannot do it.
But they take both your kids.
No,
and you made the choice. You made the choice.
That's not true. That's not true. You're letting someone else make the choice because you don't want to participate in that process. You don't want.
But that's not the choice we have. So,
that is a choice that we have.
Like, so you're letting somebody else make that choice. Okay, great. Oh, I don't want to make the choice. I'll let John Bolton make the choice. What?
No,
don't do that. You make the choice.
No, you're letting the others. Look, on the ballot today, I didn't vote for everything because there are certain things that I didn't know what it was. I was confused by the ballot initiatives. I didn't know what. So I literally did not vote because I didn't know what to do. So I don't know. Is that a morally defective thing to do? Of course not. Because I didn't know. So, but the same token, there are people who don't quite know what to do here with these two horrible candidates. So they don't want to make a choice.
And I say they're missing the goddamn story of their lives about Donald Trump.
That's a different point.
That's the point. If nobody's missing the goddamn story of their lives that this frickin' monster is running for president. I'm gonna take the last word. If nothing else. Thousands, 30,000 North Carolinians disenfranchised. Those are federal Republican judges who were appointed. Stop it! Don't let them do that. Don't let them disenfranchise voters at a bare minimum. I'll grant you a tie on foreign policy, a tie on war. We don't know. Don't let them affect climate. Don't let this monster affect climate change. Don't let him take votes away from people in this country. At a bare minimum, that's enough to go, I hate her, but I'm going to vote for her.
All right, this I will guarantee you, the audience. Tomorrow, we all fight together for systemic change.
Not with these guys.
That's the real answer.
Unless the Clinton Foundation gives us even more money.
Get money out of politics. You'll have much, much better politicians. Then we won't have to have these fights. wolf-pack.com. And we're going to continue right here on youtube.com/TYT. When we come back, a retrospective on this election. So we're going to have the worst of the Donald Trump quotes, the Marco Rubio, the Chris Christie's. We're going to have it all for you guys when we return.
I'm Jimmy McMillan.